We explore the strategic overall leading India's banking stalwarts into the digital age. This session will highlight the innovative approaches to digitize banking services, enhancing customer experiences and boosting operational efficiency. We'll discuss the hurdles encountered during the digital metamorphosis and the solutions that emerged victorious. Finally, we'll cast a vision for the future of digital banking in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for this next session from Brick and Mortar to Digital Dominance, the transformation of India's banking giant. Please put your hands together for Ramesh Lakshminarayanan, CIO Group Head IT, HDFC Bank.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I know it's a little tough to do this session, especially after the lunch. I'll try and keep it interesting, and I'm not going to, in that sense, I'm going to share some insights which are very relevant, practical, on the ground. I'll try and make it a little more grounded kind of a conversation. So I think Samir kind of alluded lots of stuff, digital journeys, fintechs, and then where is this whole ecosystem moving? So I think players like us, like HDFC Bank, I think 3 years back, if you ask me, I used to get questioned every meeting saying, oh, fintechs are doing this, fintechs are doing that, what are you guys doing? Now if I talk to the same forum saying, no, what compliance do you require for fintechs to come up the curve? How are you digitizing and how are they getting compliant? So I think it's a very interesting interplay that's happening, right? And nothing one versus the other. I think all of us are learning the ecosystem, and it's a real challenge as we go along. Because today's India is very different. And I just wanted to kind of cover through some of these slides, and you'll see why it's different. In fact, my first slide itself, I'm going to talk a few of the areas. I'm not going to get into this specifically, but I just thought I will talk about what a systematically important bank for the country looks like. How do we measure our tech and digital goals? Because there's been a lot of chat around the digital framework that the banks adopt. Then, of course, some of the programs that we run. Then how do we leverage DPI? That's a very critical aspect. How are we getting ready for the next 100 million? It's a very interesting stuff. Then, of course, can banks become technology company? I mean, that's been a very constant task, right? I mean, are we banks or are we morphing ourselves into technology firms? Of course, then some stuff around new age technology and driving the customer experience. I'll talk about a very interesting initiative on API Factory, and then lastly, how Gen AI is also making sense. So I think it's kind of little busy, but I'll try and cover it quickly and make it a little bit more interesting. So how does the ecosystem look? So this is a very interesting slide. I kind of share this at many places because when we were going through our comparisons with fintechs, we just wanted to benchmark, saying, where do you see a bank like us, let's say if you were to compare with some of the scaled up fintechs, right? So you see on the right, you have the GPay, the Zomatos, the Spotifys, the Amazon, again, Flipkarts. So we see, we do about 60 million touches every month to our customers. Okay, that's like what's equivalent on the right side. We never thought banks have scaled up to this size, but that's the reality. And it's not just, again, HDFC Bank. I think top 2-3 banks in India have got to the scale, which is like a big tech scale, actually. So that's the fundamental thing. And just see the kind of breadth. I mean, roughly about 17% the RTGS transaction, we do about 13% NEFT, 11% of the UPI, big space in merchant acquiring, tax collections, settlement of brokerages. So this is a very important. What I wanted to convey through this slide is that it's a very equal part of the ecosystem, especially when you're top 3 of the banks. Actually, you are actually embedded in the ecosystem. And if it's not working, you are going to have a systematic risk across the country. So that's the scale at which some of these things are operating. So we have no choice but to digitize and but to kind of evolve our technology rapidly. So that's what this slide is kind of conveying. Obviously, how do you measure now? This is the next part of the slide, where how does a bank look at its digital acquisition? So if you see, the first pane is very simple. The quadrant is where we stand today, 7,800 branches, 14,000 virtual RMs, about 17,000 ATMs. And we have about 83 million customers, right? That's a very large pool. But then how do we look at it? If you see in terms of transactions, we do all forms of transaction. It's cards, whether it's payment, corporate banking. And the next two quadrants are interesting. Acquisitions and services are also digitally led. So the three quadrants, transaction, acquisition, and services, drive your digital journey. And you measure your impact on a very ongoing basis, actually. So if you see that today, we are at about 82% of digital acquisition at a very high level. And then again, we measure straight-through processes. So when we say digital today, banks are also realizing that just bringing the customer onto digital platform is not good enough. You have to actually plumb your back-end processes to make it full digital. And that's a big challenge, by the way, because a lot of that stuff doesn't come out in that sense because it's a drop in the floor or some kind of RPA-driven solution at the back end. Those are not digital solutions to man. True digital solutions when the STP start coming through. So if you see, we kind of constantly benchmark against each of those. So if you see the acquisition slide, then 82% is total, and then we look at 54% of straight-through processing, and then how do we keep going up across each of the channel. Transactions have scaled up. 96% of the transactions are today digital in India. Needless to say, everybody knows what UPI has brought to the table and all the other bill payment systems and all. Services, again, very critical area. We speak about branches. Even today, branches are still vehicles of service delivery, actually. But it's still, a lot of it is physical. And that's very rapidly changing, actually. So, if you go to the branches today, they look different. Of course, there are lots of issues when you get into the branches. People kind of say RMs are deflecting it to digital, and those kind of issues come up. But there's a very smarter way of doing things. For example, we started kind of doing WhatsApp banking as a very interesting kind of linkage between the customer walking into the branch and what he gets. So you have about roughly 20-25 journeys. Service journeys completely driven on WhatsApp, actually. So basically a 15G form updation or a statement and all, you can just take it on the go, address change, email change and stuff like that. So very interesting pan out of how digital, phygital kind of coming through. But just as a very high level theme, transaction, acquisition and services are three focused digital areas, and adoption is looked at each of these quadrants, actually. Some more peeling the onion, you go deeper into it in terms of looking at each of the products and how their digital journey has gone. And if you see, some places we have done phenomenally well, some places we continue to kind of build traction out. And this is the focus that we bring to the table. We believe in next probably about 12 to 15 months, we will be 100% STP. We have a very interesting program called Zero Paper, Zero Touch. We don't want to see any paper in any of our branches, actually. So that's where we are moving, actually. So it's an interesting play out that's happening right now. Some of the programs, again, a lot of programs the bank has launched. I don't know if any of you have tried our new PayZap app, which is kind of very recent launch. Probably first app with a tap and pay. You don't even need a scan, actually. If you have a Master Visa card, you could just tap the phone on the POS and you can walk in. And this is very unique because it's only, of course, available on Android, but very, very powerful feature. Then a lot of focus on there's a new card that we launched called Pixel Play. It's a digital-only card. You don't get a physical card, but the beauty is that you can play around your, billing cycle. You could decide. Your reward points, you can cut it the way you want. You can cut down your add-on cards the way you want. You can decide which merchants you want it to be accepted. And it's only a digital card available on the app, actually. A lot of focus on, again, Vyapar, which is our merchant app. Again, a lot of traction we are seeing. It's a one-stop merchant app. Then, of course, you see customer engagement. We just changed our entire customer experience. You call the HDFC Bank contact centers. You can talk in English to a voice-led bot, and practically it will understand, and we're kind of going multilingual there. And this is not just a binary bot. It's actually a bot that's driven by a fairly sophisticated AI, actually. In fact, the same bot also drives the WhatsApp banking. This is one of the fastest growing channels today. We do about 30,000 WhatsApp adoption a day, actually. And it's rapid. If any of you have a FASTag with HDFC Bank, you can just write to the FASTag toll, and you can put a WhatsApp chat and you can recharge through a WhatsApp. What it means is that it's very interesting what we are seeing, that we are seeing a kind of a stabilization of mobile and net banking adoption. And today, customers, the focus is changing. Should you go to the customer or should wait the customer to come to your channel? That's a fundamental question that's being asked. So very, very interesting play out. And I will talk about what bank is thinking from a strategy perspective, but it's very interestingly panning out. Again, corporate digital banking, Samir spoke about it. We have revamped our corporate digital, we're moving that. We introduced a SME digital platform. We very interestingly built a distribution platform called Smart Sathi, which allows all business correspondents to go digital on the go, actually. Whether it's a biometric based or it's a complete onboarding of digital distribution agents, actually. Expressway is one-stop shop for all our digital journeys. So anytime you go to Expressway on our website, you can get to any of our acquisition or service journeys. Then a lot of focus even on our subsidiary companies. HDFC Sky was an interesting low brokerage platform that started coming through. We just introduced a very high-end wealth app, which was built by the bank, not by a third party. We actually built the app on our own. We also work very closely in some of the areas like dairy cattle with RBIH closely. Then we built one of the interesting programs last year. We did the largest car loan portal. We actually are the largest car loan portal in the country today. Because what we have done, we did not, again, build a portal for customers to come back. This is like an API hook that goes on to the manufacturer side. And you can do the disbursement into the dealer account happens in 30 minutes. So technically, you can actually get a car in 30 minutes if the car is available for delivery. So it's a very powerful digital platform that we built. We've done some very good work on the engineering. We built a very interesting platform called Streams, which is a kind of a shock absorber for core banking, actually, which allows some of the core banking loads to be kind of absorbed. We built a very interesting API orchestration platform. Still at it, it's still not done, but we are moving fast. One of the very interesting programs that we do is Trade Flow. We actually pulled up a legacy trade platform and used our existing resources in the bank to retrain and push it to a cloud, which was completely built on Google Cloud, actually. So something like a trade app going on a GCP was a very interesting kind of experiment. So you see, across the board, lot of digitization push. So it's a very interesting journey. And like I said, we are constantly now not just catching up, we are actually pushing the boundaries to get to the fintech mode. Of course, it's still a work in progress. It takes a lot of time because compliance requirements are high, regulatory pressures are high in a bank. But I think it's set in motion now, so to say. Then, of course, leveraging DPI. I'm sure each one of you understand this very well. We've been doing a lot of work with Aadhaar and DigiLocker coming through. In fact, we're finding good now traction in the DigiLocker front of late, actually, because a lot of people are getting to get aware of this platform. Credit on UPI, we launched in GFF. We are one of the banks which launched it. You very soon see this entire sachet credit coming through on the go credit. Account aggregator, again, we're not using account aggregator for PFMs. We are very clear. But we are using it. We have very interesting stuff called DigiPassbook, where we allow the account aggregator to be used more from a common services that can cut across to all digital lending journeys. Again, underwriting, again, we've kind of, like I said, we worked on the dairy financing, which is a full-blown platform for putting the entire, it's like a one-stop loan. It's so beautiful that you can kind of get to a dairy, and the farmer can actually take the loan on the go basis the milk pouring data. We don't count the number of cows or buffaloes. It's an interesting way of doing digital. So you just kind of look at the throughput of the milk, and then basis that you do the algorithm. We also worked on the voice enablement. If anyone has tried, you can actually do a UPI transaction on voice. You can get into the car, get to the petrol pump, and not touch your mobile, and still get your petrol filled, actually. Light app is coming through, all of you would know. It's a very interesting stuff. While Light is launched, but Litex is where we are moving, which is basically an NFC-based, soundbox, touch-based kind of platform. Again, launched in GFF, work in progress now very, very rapidly. And of course, many banks, it's not just that HDFC would launch it. We will definitely launch it in the next couple of months' time. But you'll see a lot of banks catching up on using the DPI. So the theme that I wanted to bring, DPI is allowing the banks also to catch up rapidly. Okay, so that's what the theme out here. This is a very interesting slide. How do you look at, now this is all fine, but how do you look at strategy? So the way we see, the left side used to be very product-centric bank thought process. where all of you would kind of agree with me that core banking used to sit at the center, then used to come the data, then the APIs, then the channels and the partnerships. What is happening is a shift to the right, where you're seeing a data and driven by AI/ML at the center, and you're seeing a microservices-based core. So core is getting hollowed out very, very rapidly. In fact, we just run on a program. We are pulling out our customer master. We are pulling our payment hubs outside of the core, actually, so that the core becomes lighter and lighter as we go, and it becomes only a debit-credit kind of a GL. Then, of course, you have the API orchestrator channels. Then comes partnerships. And the last outer ring is very interesting, which is what I spoke about. We are actually seeing banking as a service, as a proper business unit, which means you will go to the customers, you will embed yourself into customers' assets, and you will do banking out of that. So as an example, you can go to a salary account of, let's say, a Reliance, and you could go to their corporate portal and drive let's say, if a promotion of an employee happens, the car loan upgrade has to happen, he doesn't need to come to the bank's digital ecosystem. He should be taking the data from the HCM and building like a one-click kind of an approach. In fact, we just started a separate P&L unit within the bank, which is going after these services, embedding, whether it's auto loan, whether it's corporate salary services, whether it is SDK-based bundling into third-party global apps. So very interesting play out. So this is again, so the BaaS and the data at the center and the distributed microservices core are foundational changes. It's not happened in the history of the banking, but we are seeing very rapid change. Like Samir spoke about, banks are 40, 50 years back legacy systems, but this is the rapidly changing system that we are seeing. And what are the four foundational principles? The bridge that connects is basically a cloud-native stack and an active-active architecture. One must understand, in fact, we are kind of now slowly moving to active-active. This is one of our let's say, North Stars. Can I write on two databases between Mumbai and Bangalore, or Mumbai and Hyderabad, Mumbai and Delhi at the same time? Why is this important? Because today all of us are prisoners to what is called as a active-passive architecture, where logs are shipped. It takes time for the logs to get shipped, and you lose whatever pace you do, you lose 15, 20 minutes just to kind of make the transition. And that's not acceptable today. So we are changing. In fact, we are experimenting with some new age databases out here. We are following a program called Hollow the Core, and we are seeing some very interesting play out. We work with a partner called Yugabyte, a partner called Aerospike, very interesting technologies which are very different from monolithic RDBMS technology. Zero Trust security framework is very critical, and I'll kind of dive into that, because I don't think we can get security by just putting more and more appliances and more tools on top of our perimeters and our servers. It's a counterproductive, actually, at some point of time, because managing them is going to be very difficult. So I think the security starts from the engineering side when you develop the platform. So a lot of effort is going into, one, clearly looking at engineering at the core security engineering. Second, of course, looking at DevSecOps as a very key driver. And then, of course, I think some of the other ecosystem, like if you look at banks today, they also have to look at third party as a key ecosystem player. So there also you have to go down to the zero trust architecture. So clearly we are moving away from checklist-based audits on third party to scan-based audits. Can your own environment be constantly kind of looked for penetration, and can you up the scores? SOC operations are becoming very sophisticated. People are not looking for rule-based SOC operations. There's a lot of sophistication using AI/ML algorithms to determine patterns, and that's going to play out very quickly, because we are becoming a very important country, and the geopolitical attacks are going to continue. Of course, then the third pillar is modernizing apps, which I spoke about in detail. And then finally, the data. The bank has to be able to deliver actionable insights. Otherwise, we will not be riding this way. So these are the four foundational bridges which will move you from left to the right, actually. We're not there. I'm not claiming that we are there, but this is a constant focus that we are pushing ourselves to. So maybe 2 years down the line, I'll be in a much better position to say this is where we are landed. And this also, what it does, it subtly changes your thought process from a product-centric bank to a customer-centric bank. You first onboard a customer, then you onboard a product on top of it. So both from a domain side and from a tech side, it's an interesting play out. I'm sure all of you would kind of agree with what I'm kind of talking about. Many more programs, I'm not going to get into it, but few of the aspects: core modernization, middleware orchestration, customer intuitive application, AI and driven adoption. And then again, the 4 pillars. How does this strategy get into 4 pillars? API is very core. What we are seeing is, earlier we used to plumb system APIs. Most of the banks did not have a 3-tiered API architecture, which is experience API, process APIs, and system APIs. And the process APIs at the center is what drives you. Yes, you have ESBs to support, but you know, the way the system APIs are driven, they have to support a process API to make it very rapid. So frankly, if you build a PL journey, can you convert that into an auto loan journey within weeks, right? It will happen only when you plumb the process orchestration in the middle, actually, not at the bottom. So we have kind of set up a very interesting initiative called API Factory. We are completely replumbing all our APIs. We already had those APIs. But those APIs are like those electric flagpoles that you see with, you know, each wire going from one house to other. You need a switchboard in between. So that's what we are trying to do there. Cloud, one of the few banks which is in all the clouds actually, with all the CSPs. We have a very interesting construct called landing zone, where we use our own keys on the ATM side, hardware keys, and we encrypt the cloud instances, and the perimeter continues to be with us actually. And that's a very regulatorily koshered kind of a construct rather than trying to build an open source SaaS platform. Most of our critical apps go on this landing zone structure. And we have landing zone with all the 3 large CSPs actually. Data, of course, we're building the data lake on Azure and using Databricks and Azure as our co-partners, but very large scale movement into the cloud. And security, of course, as I mentioned, very key. So those are 4 pillars on which this is drive, and the left-hand side is what are we going to do with that, you know? And the right-hand side is the foundations on which we are building. So again, lot of focus on AI enablement. I'll talk about it a little bit more in next slides. Integration innovation at scale is very, very critical. Holodix core, I spoke about it. I'm not going to dwell further, but it's a very interesting program. Again, customer experience enriching is very critical. And of course, resilient, secure branch and tech infrastructure. In fact, on the branch infrastructure also, we've done some very interesting stuff, like we're moving away from classical SD-WANs and MPLS-based SD-WANs. We're moving to what we call as a ZPA or Zscaler-driven broadband-based access base, where we could actually open branches within a couple of weeks, actually, literally, because you just need a client, actually, a ZPA client to move on. So some very interesting stuff that's playing out in those areas as well. So it's not just about targeting data centers and on-prem, but also looking at how networks can be re-architected, actually. So I spoke about it. This is the quick glance on the API Factory, how we're looking at the middle, actually, to build the services. We believe each of the API will have a microservices element and will have a component-driven architecture, which will help us to quickly build the API architecture. So I'm not diving deep into it, but yeah, this itself can be a a half an hour slide actually, but I'm just touched at a very, very high level actually. Then of course, Gen AI, very interesting. I again want to be very clear that Gen AI is not just Gen AI. There is classical AI/ML. And we believe that left side will be driven by analytical credit, fraud, risk will be driven by left side, classical AI/ML. The conversational piece, ingestion and kind of conversations will be driven by the right side, Gen AI. So again, we are doing some very interesting projects there on largely private LLMs, or if it's public LLMs, it's largely driven by vector DB-based, segregation-based models, actually. Of course, a lot of focus on PEFT, model gardens and stuff like that too, to see how do we kind of make a very good Gen AI infrastructure. So Gen AI is not just about throwing LLM models. You have to create a secure infrastructure that can be kind of regulatorily koshered. So this is pretty much, I think, what I had to cover. Of course, the North Star, we are building a very interesting mobile and net banking on our own, actually, so which is foundational. We will see a very different next-gen mobile banking from the bank very soon. Because it's an area that we've not done very well in that sense. So, and we acknowledge and we moved forward and we built it on our own. So that's the rapid scale at which the bank is changing, and I'm sure this would have given a good overview. And I hope this was very useful for all of you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.